Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay. Today is March the 10th of 2021, the year of COVID, and I am making this video for my friend Jose Milera, Joe Milera. He is from Laredo, Texas. He is nurse practitioner extraordinaire and avid hunter and also avid black bass fisherman, but he has realized that there's something else besides fishing for black bass that is more exciting than black bass fishing. He recently did some carp fishing with his kids and he really enjoyed it. And he sent me a message asking me how to set up for catfish. Uh, I do a considerable amount of catfishing. I wish I did some more, but I'm going to show Joe what I know about my catfish setup. And this is a catfish setup that I've been using for maybe 15 years. This was a catfish setup that was showed to me by catfisherman extraordinaire Danny King. He is very famous for his punch bait, Danny King punch bait. And at a fishing show one time, he showed us the basic setup, and I have modified it to suit me best as time has progressed. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that you're catfishing, okay? Get away from the idea that you have to have a $300 Dobbins rod and a Shimano, I don't know, Chronarch or something like that. You don't need that, okay? And I'm going to show you what I have. I have here, this is kind of cumbersome, but what I'm going to show you here is basically just an Abu. This one is a 5500 that I bought at a pawn shop. And this is an Ugly Stick Light. Okay, you can see all the shad scales on it right there. You get shad, cut shad is the fresh cut shad is the best blue cat bait out there. Now, if you cannot get blue catfish, I made a video where I am catching good size blues. I have caught blues up to 35 pounds with a chicken breast that has been marinated in something called Dead Red. That is a spray on elixir that is made by a company called Team Catfish. Okay, but basically, what it is, it's red food coloring with anise in it, anise oil in it, and it is a very powerful and good attractant. So, if you can get some Dead Red, their products are very good. And like I said, on more than one occasion, when I either could not find shad or was too lazy to go find some, I used chicken breast. I just went out, bought some chicken breast. You don't have to use chicken breasts. You can use thighs, chicken thighs. But I find that chicken breast cuts more uniformly. And it's got a little, leave the skin on it. It's seville, you know, but the Dead Red is the key, okay? The line that I use is Berkley Big Game, and it's uh, I guess the fluorescent green line, and I use 25-pound line. Now I have a friend of mine, Johnny Ward, who I consider to be probably the best cat fisherman in Texas. He fishes out of Lake Cooper or Cooper Lake, um, and I've learned a lot from him. Okay, now he uses 100, I think 100-pound line, 100-pound braid with 150-pound shock leader, but he likes to fish a lot of timber. And when you're fishing timber, you really got to yank those catfish out of there. If any of you ever want to go on a really good guided catfish trip, there are two guys that I recommend in North Texas, and one of them is Tom Gravely, who has always been very generous with information, who I think is also among the best in Texas, if not him. And I really think that him and Johnny are the best. But that's just my opinion, okay? And they don't give me trips for free. As a matter of fact, a lot of times Tom Gravely and I don't agree on things. but that doesn't mean he's not a damn good catfisherman. And you got to give credit where credit is due. And if if you're out on the lake and you're not and anybody's catching catfish, it's going to be Johnny Ward and Tom Gravely. Okay, so back to this 25-pound line. Gravely uses mono. Okay, the last I talked to him, he used mono. I believe 25 or 30-pound mono. It's personal preference. I like mono because it's cheap, it's forgiving, and it stretches. Okay, now remember, you say, well, 25-pound line, if I catch a 25-pound catfish, it's going to break. No, it doesn't work that way. All right. Um, if any of you ever go to Bass Pro, you see that replica of that big great white that was caught. I don't know, it was 2,500 pounds, and it was caught with a 100-pound or 150-pound test line. So you've got to put, a, a, a fish doesn't put that. I mean, if you try to lift the fish out of the water, then yeah, your line's going to break. But the secret is right here in this little thing here is your drag. Okay. And if you adjust your drag, then you wear the fish out and you don't break your line. Now, let's get to what Joe wanted to find out because I'm being long winded. All right. But long winded is good, right? My setup is very basic, and this is my setup. If you don't like it, well, there are other setups. It's basically known as a Santi Cooper rig. It is also known by worm fishermen as the Carolina worm, and I like to use a 3-ounce no roll. Okay, I change it up, and the cool thing about the no roll is that when it lays on the surface of the lake, it it doesn't roll around. You can also use egg sinkers, but if you're on an incline, it's going to move, right? And you thread it through the line, and then I put a bead. Uh, I get them at the craft aisle in Walmart. You get one bag and it'll last you forever. And what it does is that it protects the knot from being clowned and being ruined. It also creates a clicking sound. There has been some people say that rattles, clicking sounds attract fish because shad make clicking sounds. I don't know. And then, of course, I tie that to a swivel. All right. Then Danny King told me to use a 2-foot leader. Right now, it could be 2 foot. I really don't measure it. I just start with a big leader. Like this was about 3 feet long. And then if the line breaks, then I don't have to retie the whole thing. Okay. By the way, those are my goats in the background. They're sad because I sold their kids today. And then we go to the hook. All right. And on this rig, I have a Gamakatsu, and this is a 6/0 uh, octopus hook. Now you can get these on Wish and on eBay, the same hooks as Gamakatsu, but they're a lot cheaper. Like you can get 50 of these for like $10 instead of paying, you know, $5 for 6. Okay. Now, if you're not trophy blue cat fishing, this is actually a small hook for trophy blue cat fishing. They go up to 10. Johnny has told me that he uses up to 12, depending on what he's looking for and stuff like that. If you're going to fish places like Lake Casablanca, where there's channels, I would go to a 2/0 hook, okay? Now, the biggest mistake that people make with these hooks, with these octopus hooks, circle hooks, and tail hooks, is that they try to set the hook. And you do not do that with these. You cast out your line, you tighten up your line, you put your rod in a rod holder, and when you see them start hitting it, you reel down on it really hard until it loads up. When it loads up, then you come back and you set the hook. But you don't really ever set the hook. What you're doing is just allowing the fish to take off with the bait, and when it feels that pressure and it turns around, it's going to clown it right in the corner of their mouth. And that's what these hooks are made to do. And octopus hooks, circle hooks, and kale hooks prevent catfish from swallowing the hooks. And then what you have to do is that you have to disengorge it, and sometimes you'll kill a catfish, a big catfish. So that's what it does. You know, if you set the hook, a lot of times the hook will just come out. You see that? Because it's the point of the hook is curved inward. So the idea is the catfish picks up the bait and then turns around, and when it turns around, bam, there it is, right there. That's a corner of the fish's mouth. So that's this setup. This is with a flat sinker, 3 ounces. Now I know you're telling me, oh my God, that's too. Well, you want your line to stay there, okay? 2 ounce, 3 ounce. Don't be afraid to use 4 ounce. It's like you can never use it's not like, because remember, your weight is going to stay there, and your line is going to move through there. You see that? So your sinker will be on the ground, and your line moves back and forth. I'm not doing a really good job of doing that, but you can tell. It just the catfish isn't going to feel any resistance whatsoever. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another rig. Now, what we have here is the Berkley Big Game. We even make fun, me and my friend Anthony Burkett, the Big Game. Before the Big Game, there was the Berkley Eagle Claw. Now, this this is just a fiberglass rod. These are $20 at Walmart. Get yourself an 8-footer, right? The reel that I'm using, this is a Daiwa. I was actually told by a French guy at a pier that you do not. Is this a Daiwa? Yeah, it is. That it's not pronounced Daiwa. It's actually pronounced Diwa. Okay, but I say Daiwa, right? Because I'm a U.S. American and I bastardize everything, right? Now this is an 8-footer. There's nothing fancy. This Daiwa reel is probably. I think I paid $20 for it, 25. Uh, it's got shad scales all over it and a bunch of other really nasty stuff. This one does have braid. Whenever I find braid on clearance, this is 65-pound braid, and that's what I have on there. Uh, I think it is. Yeah, it's kind of discolored there. You see how it fades. Now, this is also a type of the Santi Cooper Rig, right? But this got a float on it. Now, what the float does is that the float keeps the hook off the bottom, right? You'll have your weight. Let me give myself some line here. And let me show you this rig right here. This is a disc weight. You can also use a disc weight. And this is a sinker slide, right? I wish I could have invented this and I would have made a lot of money, but I didn't, right? And what you do is that you put your disc weight on there. I coated these with plastic because they would hit the rods and mess them up. So it lays flat, and you see how the line just moves there, really good. This is a 3-ounce disc weight. There you go, and you've got your sinker slide there. It slides back and forth, and then you have your bead. Right now, the coolness of the sinker slide is that it's got a clip. Let's see if I can do this. Right, it's got a clip. You undo the clip, and you can put a lighter or a heavier weight if you need it, right? That works pretty cool right there. And then, of course, this one you can tell that I broke the line a couple of times, and I have a really short leader on this one, probably about 2 feet, right? A big old swivel. Don't be afraid to use big swivels. Not a big problem. And then this is one of those really big ass. This is a number 10 um, uh, Team Catfish hooks. I do buy their products, to make sure. And this is a circle hook. You see how it's circled? It comes back in. These were made for snapper fishing, and they were made like this so you wouldn't gut hook snappers. See? Did you see how I did that? And it does the same thing. You see that? Goes right into the corner of the mouth almost every time. But if you set the hook, if you set it and you yank it, you're going to pull that right out of the fish's mouth. So what you do is you reel down, and it's really hard to get. It's even got pieces of shad eye, dried shad eyes there. It's one of the things that you have to learn, actually, like consciously teach yourself to do, is to reel down. All right, it's you have that rod on the rod holder. You see it going. The catfish commits. They got to commit. If they don't commit, then you got nothing going. You got to let them commit. Okay? When you see that, you'll see the rod going right here. Boom, 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 boom. Once you see it going down like that, you see that rod going down, then you reel as fast as you can. You make that face too. And when the fish feels that, it's going to turn around to go in the opposite direction of where it picked up the bait. And when it does that, because its mouth is like boom, 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 and it picks up the bait like that, right? And it's going forward. When it feels that resistance, it's gonna go in the opposite direction. And mira, look at what happened. Right in the corner. This is the fish's corner mouth, and it's gonna go right into that bone. And your chances of losing the fish are a lot less, because a lot of times this loop will become wedged in the catfish's mandible, in their jaw, right? And that is a very, very effective. I don't fish with anything else. And so now I've caught 3-pound fish with 10-aught hooks. I have caught 30-pound fish with 5-aught hooks. When I first started this, when a friend of mine, Lance Lutka, got me into catfishing, me and Lance and Paul Rich Jr., we were fishing. we were using like 5-aught hooks with a 30-pound leader and 20-pound line, and we didn't know any better. We were just trying everything out, and we were catching big fish. We were catching, I don't think I've ever caught a catfish heavier than 30 pounds with a 5-aught. My daughter Isabella holds a lake record. She caught a 30-pound blue with a 5-aught. 5-aughts are a good all-around hook, but if you know for a fact that at the lake that you're at, there's not an abundance of really big fish, then it's better to go down into the 2s or the 3s. Smaller isn't necessarily bad. I mean, Anthony Burkett's friend Tom uses 2-aught hooks to catch, 20-pound striper, teeny little hook, and he swears by them. Now, a big hook like this, I mean, how big a bait can you put there? Well, however big you can. I mean, there's a gentleman, big gentleman, big catfish people like, I think his name is Mickey Petrie, and other people use whole, they'll get a 5-pound carp and they'll cut the head off and then cut the head in half and use a piece of a piece of bait that's the size of this cup, and literally just like that. They'll have a big old chunk of bait. I never use really big baits. Okay, I like to use. I don't know. I mean, it all depends how I'm feeling that day. And my favorite bait, my favorite part of the shad is the head. As Lance Lutka said, well, everybody likes a little head every once in a while. So he likes to uh, uh, and I've caught the biggest catfish that I've ever caught in my life have been with shad heads. Okay, we've sometimes have had little contests. We've caught big catfish with tails, but since an animal always, for the most part, eats another fish head first, then it always, like, it's common sense to use the head, right? So I hope that you found this video informative. Again, these are my views and nobody else's. This isn't anything that I came up with on my own. I modified these techniques that were taught to me by the people that I have mentioned, uh, and they have been very successful. I have not caught a 30-pound fish in 2 years, but I haven't gone out. I haven't been out much. Uh, 30 pounds seems to be you start. I consider a trophy catfish. Trophy catfish begin at 30 pounds. My biggest catfish that I have ever landed is, I think, I was with Anthony Burkett at Eagle Mountain Lake. I think it was 47 or 48 pounds. That's the biggest I've ever landed. The biggest that has ever been landed by somebody that I personally know was Paul Rich, and he caught, I think it was 57 or 52 at Cooper Lake. Cooper Lake is one of the best catfish fisheries in the state, and not enough people go there. If you go there, I mean, you can sit there and catch 5 to 7 pound catfish all day long. But again, if you don't know what you're doing, I'd strongly recommend that you get together with a couple of friends and pay a couple of $100 for a half day trip and book it with either Tom Gravely or uh, Johnny Ward. I mean, believe me, that's an investment. Okay, it'll save you a lot of trial and error, and you'll see their equipment, and they will teach you. They're learning trips, or you may want to tell them, hey, I want to go on a learning trip. I really don't want to focus on the fishing. If we do catch some fish, I'm fine, but a learning trip will be good. I know that Ram Reyes is really up and coming in South Texas with King Outdoors at Falcon Lake. Um, he has connected with some of the big names up here, and I believe in the near future, if not already, he will be the predominant trophy blue catfish guide uh, in South Texas, because he has a dedication and he has a wherewithal, and more than anything else, he wants to do it. That's the guy lives it. I give him a hard time all the time, but I give him a hard time because I like him. So anyway, I hope that all of you are doing well, and if you have any more questions, ask me. If you have any questions about me using chicken, there is a video that I have on my YouTube channel where I'm fishing with my belated dog Lulu, uh, and I catch a lot of, I mean, it's not the optimum bait. You know, shad is the number one. Carp, Paul, Rich, and I have found out that carp is a lot better than buffalo for some reason or another. Um, in places like Oklahoma, they use crappie and sand bass because it's legal. I hear that crappie and sand bass are absolutely phenomenal for catfishing, but it's illegal in Texas, and I'm not going to encourage anybody to break the law, and you shouldn't break the law. But go out, catch yourself a couple of carp. If you can't get shad, get yourself some shad. By the way, Paul, Rich, and I have found out that you can keep carp frozen for up to 9 months, and they're still good. Make sure you get those scales off of them, because then the scales will become impaled here in the tip of the hook, and keep your hook sharp also. But those are the kind of things that you'll learn on a learning trip. I mean, I can't teach you this in a 20-minute video, but the idea is that if you go on a learning trip with a reputable guide, you will learn all these things and all these different variations. I just showed you two of the things that I like to do. And by the way, I've had the best rods. I've had, $100 catfish rods, and I didn't catch any more fish than I did with, the Berkley Big Game or the Berkley Eagle Claw or the Ugly Stick. Uh, I don't. And on that one, I'll butt heads with anybody. It's not the equipment that is going to catch fish for you. It's you knowing where to find the fish, which are below the shad, because that's where most catfish are going to be. You want to catch catfish, you got to find the shad. You find the balls of bait. If the shad are shallow, the catfish are shallow. If the if it's cold and the balls of shad are deep, then the catfish are going to be beneath the shad. The other fish will be feeding for the shad, and whatever middlings fall down, that's what the catfish eat. Uh, to me, the most exciting kind of catfish fishing is shallow water catfishing. You know, in 5 feet of water, 5 feet, 3 feet of water, because the biggest catfish I've ever caught, I caught on a trip with Paul Rich Jr. and his dad, Paul Sr. Wonderful man. We were out at Tawakoni after a cold spell, and there was like freight trains. You're in 5 feet of water, and those blues hit that bait, and they don't go down. I mean, they're running from one end of the boat to the other. As to when you're fishing deep, they're deep, so you bring them up. But when they're shallow and they hit shallow, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to try and get into that timber. And if you can't turn them before they get into that timber, your chances of boating them are almost decreased dramatically. So anyway, uh, uh, I hope you all like my video. I'm sorry for being so long-winded. Joe, uh, I hope this helps you. And I think the most important thing is that you need to come up here and do some fishing with me, or we can book a trip with Johnny Ward or with Tom. Uh, I don't have a problem, paying professionals for what they know how to do, and the more the merrier. Okay, you all take care, be kind to each other, and continue to wear your masks and get vaccinated as soon as you can.